The faint chatter of students echoed through the halls of Bright Future Secondary School, but all eyes often darted toward one girl, Amara. Her presence was quiet, almost invisible, yet something about her unsettled everyone. She sat at the back of the class, her almond-shaped eyes seemingly reflecting the depths of a mysterious ocean. What no one knew was that her silence was not from shyness, but restraint. The bullies didn't see it that way. To them, Amara was easy prey, a loner with no one to defend her. But Amara had secrets, ones she couldn't share even if she wanted. Knew was that her silence was not from shyness, but restraint. The bullies didn't see it that way. To them, Amara was easy prey, a loner with no one to defend her. But Amara had secrets, ones she couldn't share even if she wanted to. And one fateful day, the bullies crossed a line they couldn't uncross. It started with minor things. Ekayet, the self-proclaimed queen of the school, would snatch Amara's books and mock her strange aura. "What's with the creepy vibes? Are you even normal?" she'd sneer. The boys, led by Jide, weren't much better. They laughed at her threadbare uniform and claimed she smelled of fish. The final straw came during break one afternoon. Amara was sitting under the large mango tree by the school fence, eating her lunch in solitude. Ekayet and her crew stormed up to her. "Look at her, eating all alone as usual," Ekayet said loudly. "Let's help her spice up her food." Before Amara could react, one of the boys grabbed her plate and dumped sand into it. The others howled with laughter. Amara's hands clenched into fists, her knuckles turning white. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stared at them with an intensity that made Ekayet falter for a moment. "Did you see how she looked at us?" one of the girls whispered. Ekayet waved it off. "She's just a freak." That night the bullies began to feel uneasy. Jide, the loudest of them all, woke up drenched in sweat after a vivid dream of drowning in a dark, endless ocean. He could feel cold, slimy hands pulling him deeper. Ekayet had her own troubles. She couldn't shake the sensation that someone, or something, was watching her. Her room felt unusually damp, and faint whispers seemed to echo from her bathroom, though no one was there. When they met the next day, their bravado was visibly shaken. But they couldn't let anyone see their fear, especially Amara. "It's just stress," Ekayet muttered, more to herself than anyone else. The tension boiled over during a school assembly. As the principal droned on about upcoming exams, a strange sound interrupted the gathering, a low, haunting hum. It wasn't coming from the speakers, nor could anyone pinpoint its source. The students murmured nervously, and the teachers exchanged confused glances. Suddenly, Jide screamed and fell to his knees, clutching his chest. "I can't breathe! I can't breathe!" he gasped, as though invisible water was filling his lungs. The assembly erupted into chaos. Ekayet's fear turned to terror as she saw Amara standing at the back, her eyes locked on Jide. For a brief moment, Ekayet swore she saw scales shimmering on Amara's neck, but when she blinked, they were gone. That evening, Ekayet and her crew gathered to discuss what had happened. They all agreed that Amara was somehow behind it, but they didn't know how. "Maybe she's a witch," one of the girls whispered. Jide, still shaken, suddenly remembered an old story his grandmother used to tell him about mermaids. Mamiwata. "What if she's not just a witch?" he said, his voice trembling. "What if she's something worse?" Ekayet laughed nervously. "You're letting your imagination run wild. She's just a weird girl with no friends. That's all." But deep down, Ekayet knew something wasn't right. The dreams, the whispers, the strange happenings. It couldn't all be a coincidence. The next day, the bullies decided to confront Amara. They cornered her after school near the river that ran behind the compound. Ekayet stepped forward, trying to mask her fear with anger. "We know what you're doing. Stop it, or else..." "Or else what?" Amara interrupted, her voice calm but cold. For the first time, the bullies noticed how the sunlight seemed to glisten on her skin, like water reflecting light. Ekayet took a step back. You're not normal," she stammered. Amara smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "You should have thought about that before you poured sand into my food," she said softly. Without warning, the river behind them began to churn violently. The bullies screamed as the water rose, forming a towering wave that loomed over them. When the teachers arrived at the riverbank, all they found were the bullies' shoes and bags scattered on the ground. Amara was sitting on a nearby rock, her expression unreadable. "What happened here?" a teacher demanded. "They slipped and fell," Amara replied simply. "The river took them." The story spread like wildfire through the school, but no one dared confront Amara again. Those who had bullied her were never seen or heard from again. The days following the bully's disappearance were eerily quiet at Bright Future Secondary School. The once vibrant chatter in the classrooms was replaced by hushed whispers. Everyone avoided the river, and the students who used to taunt Amara now avoided her at all costs. But strange things continued to happen. Classrooms occasionally flooded with the smell of salt water, even on dry days. The school's water taps ran red for a moment before turning clear again, and at night some students swore they heard faint singing near the river, a haunting melody that stayed with them even in their dreams. Ekiet's closest friend, BC, couldn't take it anymore. She had avoided the river entirely since that day, but guilt gnawed at her. "We can't just pretend this isn't happening," she whispered to her friend Shade one afternoon. Shade shivered. "You think I'm going back there? Forget it. Amara isn't normal. Let's just stay out of her way." But BC had made up her mind. "We have to know the truth." That evening, BC made her way to the river alone. The air was heavy, and the usually clear water seemed darker, almost black. She stood on the edge, clutching a charm her grandmother had given her for protection. "Amara," she called out hesitantly. The sound of her voice seemed to vanish into the stillness. "If you're here, I just want to talk." The river rippled slightly, and BC's heart raced. For a moment she thought she had made a mistake coming here, but then a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Amara. "You shouldn't have come," Amara said, her voice as calm and cold as the river itself. "I need to know what happened," BC replied, her voice trembling. Are they gone forever?" Amara tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Do you think they deserve to stay?" BC was silent. She remembered how cruel they had been, but still the thought of them vanishing so completely sent a chill down her spine. "You don't have to do this," she said finally. "You don't have to be like them." For the first time, Amara's composure wavered. "You think I chose this?" she asked, her voice rising. "You think I wanted to be mocked, humiliated, treated like I was nothing? They pushed me to this." The river began to churn again, and BC stepped back in for fear. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," Amara interrupted. "None of you cared to know." As the river calmed, Amara's expression softened slightly. "I didn't hurt them," she said quietly. BC blinked. "What do you mean?" "They're alive," Amara said. "But they're in a place where they'll learn what it means to feel powerless. The river took them to a realm where the currents decide their fate." BC's legs felt weak. Realm? What does that even mean?" "It's not for you to understand," Amara replied. "But know this, if you or anyone else tries to harm me again, the river won't be so forgiving next time." Before BC could respond, Amara turned and walked into the water. Her body shimmered as it merged with the river, leaving BC standing alone on the shore. The next morning, the principal called an emergency assembly. His face was pale, and he avoided making eye contact with the students. "It has come to my attention that some of you have been spreading rumors about unnatural occurrences," he said. "Let me make this clear. We will not tolerate such behavior. Focus on your studies and leave the river alone." The students exchanged nervous glances. The principal's words only added to their fear. Did he know something they didn't? Meanwhile, Amara sat at the back of the assembly, her face expressionless. She could feel the stares, the fear, the whispers. But she didn't care. She had more pressing matters to deal with, matters that extended far beyond the school grounds. That evening, as Amara walked home, she felt a presence following her. She quickened her pace, but the footsteps grew louder. "Amara?" a deep voice called out. She froze. Slowly she turned to see a man in a flowing white garment standing behind her. His eyes glowed faintly, and his skin had the same shimmer as hers. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady, despite the fear creeping into her chest. "I am a messenger from the ocean," the man replied. "You've drawn too much attention to yourself, Amara. The elders are not pleased." Amara's heart sank. She knew this day would come, but she had hoped to avoid it. "I did what I had to do," she said defiantly. The man shook his head. "You have endangered our kind. The humans are already suspicious. If you cannot control yourself, they will come for us." Amara clenched her fists. Let them try. The night was unusually quiet when Amara was summoned to the depths of the river, where the elders of her kind held their council. The glowing messenger guided her through an underwater tunnel that seemed endless, lit only by a faint bioluminescent glow. At last, they arrived in a grand ethereal chamber carved from coral and pearl. The elders sat in a circle, their forms majestic and otherworldly, each radiating an aura of immense power. "You have disrupted the balance, Amara," the eldest spoke, her voice resonating like a wave crashing on the shore. "Humans fear us for a reason. Your actions have drawn their attention." "They deserved what they got," Amara argued, her voice trembling but firm. "They tormented me, humiliated me. I only defended myself." Another elder leaned forward. "And in doing so, you risked exposing us all. The veil that protects us from their world is fragile. If it breaks, it could mean war." Amara's defiance faltered. "What would you have me do?" The eldest elder raised her hand, silencing the murmurs of the council. "The humans will not stop until they understand what happened. You must erase their memories, of you, the river, and everything that transpired." Amara's eyes widened. "Erase their memories? That would mean losing everything I've built here." "It is the price of your mistake," the elder replied, "and the only way to restore the balance." The next morning, Bright Future Secondary School was abuzz with confusion. The bullies had returned, disoriented but alive. They claimed they had no memory of the past few weeks. BC2 found herself standing at the riverbank, unable to recall why she had come. The haunting melody that had lingered in her dreams was gone. Amara, meanwhile, stood in her empty house, packing her belongings. The memories of her life among the humans were fading, like water slipping through her fingers. Before leaving, she visited the school one last time. She stood in the shadows, watching the students go about their day as if nothing had happened. No one looked her way. No one whispered her name. She was invisible again. With a heavy heart, Amara turned and walked toward the river. The water welcomed her as she stepped in, its cool embrace washing away the last traces of her human life. Deep within the ocean, Amara sat alone in a quiet cavern, reflecting on her time among the humans. She had learned much about their cruelty and their kindness. But her story wasn't over. The elders had given her a choice: remain in the ocean and serve her kind, or return to the surface one day, wiser and stronger. For now, Amara chose to stay, but she knew that someday, when the time was right, she would rise again. Not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. The river remained silent, but its waters held a secret, the story of a girl who was more than she seemed, and a world that had yet to truly understand her.